So, for all the work we've done today, we've got ourselves a swarm. The hive that we were trying to treat, and we think the hive that had the queen that was piping to tell them that they were going to swarm, has actually now swarmed. And if you look in the tree, I'm sure we can zoom in and show you, there they are, hanging in a tree, about 15 pounds in weight, I should think, of bees, somewhere in the region of 30,000 bees are hanging in that tree. And it's now our task to somehow get them back out of this particular tree. So we'll have to very stealthily work underneath it, removing all the hawthorn and the bits and pieces without disturbing them. And then in a couple of hours' time, when it's quietened down a bit more, we will then attempt to get them out of the tree. This is where all the fun and games start.
Unfortunately, there are lots of stingers around. They do choose the most inconvenient places to swarm.
I thought we might give you some more information on the swarming process. You may by now have thought, well, what the heck are they swarming for in this awful weather, pouring down with rain, exposed out on a tree, soaking wet? Well, the process of swarming starts 2 to 3 days beforehand. And what the bees in the colony decide whether they're going to swarm or not the queen. So what they do is they will not feed her for 2 or 3 days, quite a few days, until she's slimmed down enough to be able to fly, because she wouldn't get very far as she was when she's egg laying. Now, as soon as she's slimmed down, and that's what we saw yesterday, a fairly slimmed down queen, they will then decide in amongst themselves how many are going, how many are staying, how many workers will be going, how many nurse bees, how many wax builders. So they have a collective decision to make as to how many bees are going to leave that hive. And as in the case, I estimated there was about 30,000 bees decided to go. But they will leave behind, with that virgin queen, they'll leave behind in that hive enough bees for them to start all over again. Now the process has it started 3 days ago, that they won't know where they're going. They have no idea where their new hive's going to be. And that is why when they take off and they make a tremendous noise in the sky, all 30,000 of them flying around, and until they've all come out of the hive, they will be flying around waiting. And they'll know when they've all come out of the hive, and then they'll fly across to really one of the nearest trees. And you'll see over there where the stepladder is, that's as far as they've flown. The queen will land on the tree, and then they will completely surround her, and it doesn't matter what the weather is, the decision's been made, and they're now sitting on that tree. Now they could stay there for anything from up to 3 hours to 4 or 5 days, and that will solely depend on whether they've located a new home. Now I'll just take you through the process of creating a new home. What happens is, once they're there, and daylight hours, if it was this morning and they were still on the tree, scout bees, and anything up to 500 scout bees, will head off in all directions to go and look for a new home. And normally that new home is quite a distance from where they are now. And it'll take quite a while for them to find a new home. One scout bee might find an ideal site, will come back and tell other scout bees, I've just found this fantastic semi-detached beehive or semi-detached hole in a tree, 2 up, 1 down, and a bathroom, etc. And another load of scout bees will go out, and it'll need 2 dozen scout bees to go and visit that same site and come back and tell the others, yep, Martha was completely right, she's chosen the right home for us. And it won't be until that point they then make the collective decision, yes, we're going to fly there. And that could be anything up to 2 or 3 miles away from where they are at the present time. And at that point then, they will all as one lift up, wait for each other, and then they'll be off. And that's quite often, to the person who doesn't understand about beekeeping or bees, that's the frightening, or can be the frightening aspect of seeing a swarm of bees flying towards their new home. And little really do people realise that they're completely harmless, They're not interested in you, they're on a mission and they're going to their new home. Now that new home normally, will, as I say, would most likely be a tree. The sad thing is that on average nowadays, with all the diseases and the pesticides and all the problems the bees have, about 10% survival rate for that particular colony. So that's really the responsibility of the beekeeper, is to try and get that swarm back to an apiary somewhere. And it's really, again, a safety thing, because it's worrying for general public.
I'll just add that once they swarm out of a hive onto a local branch, that's the opportunity for you to collect it. Once they've decided to move to their permanent home, you've really lost them. There's very little chance that you'll be able to go and collect them unless you knew exactly where they were. But if they fly 2 to 3 miles away, you could be combing the countryside for a very long time before you find them. So this is an ideal opportunity. When they've come out the hive straight away, you can collect them, and you've got usually about 2 days grace.
So what we're going to do in a minute, hopefully, if I don't fall off this ladder, we're going to now shake these bees. Unfortunately there's a thunderstorm, which doesn't help at all. We're going to try and shake them into the box by giving them a sudden shock, and they should all fall in, and hopefully the queen will fall in as well. That's what we're hoping for. Then I'm going to come down, as soon as I've done it, I'm going to come straight down the ladder and leave the box here for them to settle down in. So are we ready then? So here we go. We're going to give them a violent shake and try and get them in the box.
Do you want the bee brush? Don't worry about those, they'll be fine. They'll clamber back up into the box. Let's hope the box has the queen in it. So if the queen is not in the box and she's still on the tree, they'll all fly back up into the tree.
Got the brush?
Yeah, I'll get the brush for you. So we're just brushing as many as we can off the trunk, just in case if the queen is there, she'll get brushed into the box. There's quite a lot of bees in the on the dust sheet as well, so she might be on there, we just don't know, but we'll find out because they'll all congregate around her. Now this looks promising. On the window here, screen, they're gathering. So part of me thinks there is a queen in there and her pheromone is coming out through the gauze. So they're being attracted to that. So now what we're doing is we're going to turn the box upside down. This seems very strange, but it's the fact that they've got to have that sort of gap underneath, like a proper hive. It's really raining now. And it means that then they can walk up underneath. Okay, brilliant. So what they'll do is they'll cling up to the underside of the roof, and then we'll open a little hole for them to crawl in. I think we're lucky. I think the bees have their queen inside the box. You can see their Nosenov's glands going. They're fanning the entrance. So all the bees that are underneath hopefully will smell that pheromone and they'll gradually go into the box. We're going to go probably to the car now because it's absolutely chucking it down and our bee suits are not waterproof at all. Hopefully they'll go in to get out of the rain as well. Back in an hour.
So we're going back up the ladder now. We're going to pick up the box. Pouring down with rain in a thunderstorm, not ideal conditions. We're assuming that all the bees have gone into the hive, into the box itself. There will be quite a few bees left, so I'm going to gradually bring this box down. They're hanging on in there, so I'm convinced that the queen is in the box.
It's a very heavy box,
It's a very heavy box.
How many pounds of bees do you think are in here?
Feeling that now, we're on about 15 pounds of bees, so I would have said that we've got 30,000 bees in here, I think.
We'll rescue the ones off the blanket in a minute. We're just wading through the nettles.
This is not ideal conditions in a thunderstorm, I can assure you.
And the next, it's just absolutely thrown it down. So we're hoping that we can install these bees in their new hive before it chucks it down again. Now there's always going to be a chance that these bees don't like this hive, and tomorrow morning we'll find them back on the tree or somewhere else. But that's a chance we're going to take. Hopefully the rain will put them off.
So now we've got to try and get them in the hive, and I'm going to lift one door open, and hopefully some of them will fall in. This is the precarious bit, because at this time of night you do not want to lose your bees anywhere. So we're hoping that we can get them to go in the box. Like so, and then we're just going to do the same with the other side. Going to very carefully lift the lid of these, and they should hopefully go into the hive. We'll give them a few minutes after this, and then what we'll have to do, we'll have to shake them down if they haven't gone in.
You can see they're falling in. We just need to give them a short, sharp shake to get the rest in, but there's quite a lot on the outside of these scores, so we don't want to lose these. What I'll do is I'll put this crown board underneath, and then if they fall, they'll get caught on the crown board, hopefully. The crown board is going to capture those.
Okay, that's
Whoa.
interesting scenario. The lid's soaked though, that's the
Yeah.
trouble. Right, I'm going to bang the
Here we go.
1, 2, 3.
Wow,
Let's just hope they've gone in there.
I think so. We're going to lift it up. There's so many bees in it. Wow, look at that. Fantastic. So hopefully they'll all go in. Fingers crossed. We can't use any smoke. There's no point. Smoke is so that they can gorge themselves on honey. They're already gorged with honey. You can see there's still quite a lot of them in there. But hopefully they'll all run into the hive. And we don't have to rescue them. They're not flying, which is good, or not many of them are flying. Now, if they really didn't like this hive, they'd be up in the air by now. But the weather's definitely not for it. So, any of the stragglers we need to collect, we need to put them by the entrance so that they can walk up, and then they'll be... Sounds very harsh that we're banging them, but that's the only way to get them out, really. So yes, they'll walk up into the hive. Let's hope they like their new home. The camera's probably not very good quality because the light's so low. But you can see frames, so they're gradually going into the hive, dispersing. We really do want to get a lid on to stop them from getting wet, but we'll just have to wait. I think we caught most of them. There's a few on the floor. Just get them to move out the way. Andy's also scooping them up off the edge. And they're absolutely docile. It's an amazing feeling. This curtain of bees, as you just, it's like they're just one entity. It's not a separate bee. It's like material that drapes. That's because they're just so much in swarm mode. That's all they can do, hang on to each other. There we go. Right, we're going to try and put the lid on. Very, very slowly. Too many bees.
Too many bees. We'll give it a couple of more minutes and we'll just see if we can get a few more to go down into the hive. It's not ideal conditions because bees actually hate thunderstorms.
Usually they're really, really narky.
I cannot believe we haven't been stung yet. I'm waiting for a...
But just like this morning, these are from the hive. If it's from the same hive as the queen was tooting, the hive was so gentle. Even though we messed it completely around, we took out lots and lots of frames of brood to stop it from swarming. And they just took it all. They didn't sting us, they didn't fly at us. It's just one amazing hive. Probably the mated queen that we've always had, and she was slimmed down, that's where she was tooting. And we don't know whether the other hive that this swarmed out of, which is just over there, third one on the right, don't know how many bees are in there. There might be no bees whatsoever because there's so many bees here.
They are going down, so that's why I'm not putting the crown board on. They're gradually going into the hive. I'm going to go back to the tree and rescue what I can of the other bees.
I've got a few bees on me. They're everywhere. So we've got some bees from the dust sheet. Hopefully we'll be able to shake some out onto this crown board. Oh, there's a few. There's a few. Let's try and get as many as we can, because if this storm happens again and it chucks it down, I don't think there'll be many bees surviving out here. They've all got to go in. So you can see some on the floor there, but they'll hopefully just use this crown board as a walk-in and they'll walk up to the hive. Certainly making a noise. You can see some of them are coming in. You can see that one with its abdomen up. She's definitely fanning, saying, "This is the hive we've chosen." Whoa. Crash bang wallop.
I think we're going to have to close the hive down and just these are going to have to find their way in.
Okay, that's fine. We'll leave a branch of a tree and then they can always climb up. That's what usually happens. These are probably nurse bees that don't usually fly, and it means that then if we didn't put a stick up, they'll just be lost. They're only a few inches away. So we'll put a stick there and then they can climb up it, hopefully. We're just putting the crown board on really gently, basically just waiting until they all move out the way. And then they'll feel safe, because that's what they need. They need a hive which is basically waterproof, otherwise they might abscond. So you can see the crown board's actually being lifted up by all those bees. Hopefully it'll go down soon. Still got some on my hand.
The joys of beekeeping. In the middle of a thunderstorm.
Don't ask us to collect any more swarms. We'll only collect our own.
They did this on purpose, these bees, just so we could film it for you to see.
Yeah. And they always have a habit, our bees, of choosing the wrong day to do it on. You know, the textbook tells you they'll swarm on a really nice day, or they swarm on a really awful day. They've already got soaked once. We'll wait here for about another hour, about 9:30 now at night. We'll just wait until they've all gone in, then we can go home happy. We'll come back tomorrow, we'll feed them, because they need sugar syrup. There's all foundation in here, which means that the comb is not being drawn out. As a swarm, they will be perfect condition to draw out comb. They'll draw it out in about a week, but they need the resources. Whoops, there's a bee on our on our lens. That's quite interesting. Brilliant, fantastic. Right, okay, we'll come back in a bit. Well, this hive has now got the lid on, crown board. These bees on the front will go down hopefully to the entrance. We're going to leave them alone. Leave them to it. Come back tomorrow morning, hopefully they'll be still in there.
Well, here we are again. It's very early the following morning, and the first job the beekeeper has to do is to look to see whether those bees have actually gone back to the same tree. And we're pleased to say that there's no evidence of them in the tree that they were in last night. So we're now assuming that they're actually in that hive and they haven't moved. It's been very thundery activity all night long. So we doubted very much whether they would come out, but if they hadn't got the queen in there, they would have all flown back to that tree. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go down to the hive, and we're going to, because the bees are in there on brand new comb, they have no food, we're going to give them a food supplement to help them to draw out the comb ready for the queen to lay eggs in, or that is the plan. So the only thing we're going to do is to give them some feed, and the feed we give them is all in this milk bottle, but what we've made up is a 1-to-1 sugar to water ratio, and that is what they like to take down, which will help them develop the wax glands so they can all then start building like mad their new comb for the queen. So within 2 to 3 days they could have actually built a few frames of comb up ready for her to start laying eggs.
You can see some hovering around the entrance and flying in, and that's a really good sign as well. So we know that they're all in there. I think they're just scouting out the front to make sure that their home is alright. If they do decide to swarm out, it will be probably later on today, but fingers crossed, if we feed them, then it's going to be a lot more likely that they'll stay in there. So we're just opening the lid now. Well, they're very calm. We're just going to take some of these sticks out. It's quite early in the morning, so they're not going to be flying very much anyway. They're probably still soaked from last night. So we didn't want to take the crown board off, but unfortunately the crown board got stuck to the lid. But they're being really nice about it. What we'll do now is we're going to put the feeder on. We'll try and disturb them as little as possible. So just filling up the feeder. Put the cup inside so that they don't drown. Right. We're also giving them a pollen patty. They might not use it, but then it's their choice. So when the queen starts laying, they don't need to go and forage, but they probably will forage because that's what they're trained to do in this case. So this is an empty box on top just to seal the feeding area, and then we just put the lid on.
So we're now looking at the hive that they've come from. This is the hive that we were working on yesterday, and this is the hive where we were hearing the tooting, and we couldn't make a decision as to what was going on and exactly why she was tooting, knowing that one of the reasons is that they could swarm. What I want you to listen to though is that we did 2 recordings yesterday, and in fact on playback you will hear, and we'll play it for you in a second, both hoots from the queen are at different pitches, and that would determine the fact that there were 2 queens in that hive and not one. But during inspection, when you only pick up one tooting sound or one piping sound, you think there's only one queen in the hive. So I think we were mistaken yesterday, but just have a listen to this. Interesting that, isn't it? I hope you could pick up the difference between the pitch of the 2 queens. So what we would assume now is that the queen with the lowest pitch, she was the original queen. She now is the one that has swarmed and gone into the other hive, or we've put her into that other hive. And then the virgin queen with the slightly higher pitch, hopefully, is now left behind in that big hive, obviously with very few bees, very depleted. But they'll work hard and they will build that hive up. Now that hive won't actually produce any honey necessarily, certainly the honey that we would be able to take off, but they will then build up enough honey resource to keep them going over the winter. So they're like a nucleus hive, like a small hive that we just created. Whereas the other hive has a huge number of bees. They will work really hard. All the worker bees will now turn into wax builders, and they'll all now be working on building comb.